Steve Drake was an exceptionally talented communicator who was well respected within the agricultural industry during his long and successful career. Even since his passing in 2021, Steve's contributions to the nation's farming community have lived on through the continued work of his peers. With a background in traditional journalism and public relations, Steve's career in agriculture first began in 1978 when he joined the American Soybean Association as executive vice president alongside his longtime friend Ken Bader. Steve first met Ken when he was a journalism student at The Ohio State University. Ken worked as the assistant dean of the College of Agriculture.
Well, what stood out to me right from the beginning was his ability to analyze and comprehend the situations that he was encountering, both as a student and as a budding professional in the journalism world. I knew he had creativity. He had good speaking ability. He was just a superb writer. And so I figured that at that point, somewhere down the line, I was going to be able to hire Steve as a staff member. And Steve was the perfect person for this role. He could write, he could think, he was able to express himself beautifully. He probably wrote hundreds of speeches for me and with the farmer leaders that gave testimony in Congress. So he had a multitude of skills that reflected very much on his abilities. And most of all, he was an Ohio native, which I, of course, am. And we both had a dying urge to get Ohio in the mainstream, so to speak, with regard to the soybean checkoff and participating, if you will, in the Soybean Association's worldwide efforts.
One of Steve's greatest accomplishments during his almost 15-year career with the American Soybean Association was successfully leading the grassroots campaign to establish the soybean checkoff program in Ohio and nationally. Steve's leadership through this initiative was instrumental in gaining federal legislative support of the checkoff, which has resulted in over $40 million in funding for soybean research and market development.
The challenge was to getting farmers to realize what the potential was for soybeans and soybean production. And today, for example, soybeans are probably the leading crop production crop out there. Although corn and soybeans alternate, and it's a good rotation for the farmers to have. But the farmers' leadership had to be convinced, first of all, that there was benefit to their efforts. And many of them gave hours and hours of service to both the national and state soybean councils to support the research and market promotion efforts. The farmer leaders really were hungry for someone to help guide them in the legislative arena. And so working with members of Congress and state legislative groups, as well as with other publics, Steve was just a master of being able to bring all these elements together. Steve was one who believed that working with some of the farmer leaders to develop their skills in speaking to the public, to the media, and to others that were decision makers was important to achieve the goals of the farmers generally. And so I really admired his ability to see the opportunity, if you will, nationally for soybean farmers to rise up and become leaders in their community, not only with soybeans, but with the community efforts that they lived in.
In addition to the work Steve did on behalf of the American soybean farmers, he also accomplished a great deal through the National Christmas Tree Association. As a result of Steve's work, the sale of live Christmas trees increased dramatically nationwide, and an initiative was developed to deliver Christmas trees to the homes of military service members at more than 30 bases across the country. As a veteran himself, this was something Steve felt passionate about.
Well, it certainly gave him the seed for believing a program like this was possible, and I think was a stimulus for his effort to get that underway and succeed as it did. Tremendous success. It got national attention on some of the live news media at the time. So it was an effort that was unique, an effort that was successful, and one that made a lot of people happy across this landscape of U.S. military involvement overseas and at home.
An innovator, an optimist, and a mentor to many, Steve was an accomplished leader in agriculture. The legacy of his contributions will continue to live on, as will his determined and passionate spirit.
Well, Steve was tremendously impactful with my thinking along the way, my association with him. I always felt refreshed, if you will, of what new opportunities were when I'd have a 15-minute conversation with him. He was a gifted person, a communicator. He was certainly endowed with the ability to work with people effectively and to get motivated, get other people motivated to further the cause of whatever it was he became. He was a community leader. He was a supporter of things for people generally in the community in which he lived. He was just an individual that you sort of wished and hoped that your sons would be like when they grew up.
An innovator, an optimist, and a leader who embraced challenges as opportunities for American agriculture, the Ohio Agricultural Council is pleased to induct Steve Drake into the Hall of Fame.